Okay, so for July's game analysis, we're gonna look at a game from the FIDE World Cup, which is happening right now. So this game is from the second round of the World Cup in the second match, but the first round. So it's between Bassem and Gabuzyan from Armenia. So the opening started with like a symmetrical English, which is pretty standard, and here black played e5. So black broke the symmetry. He could have played knight f6, and I personally played d4 in this position to break the symmetry, because white has an extra move, so he can open up the center first. Anyways, black opted for e5, so this is another setup that I've played with the white and black pieces. Basically, black's idea is to play d6 and have like a pawn triangle here, and it really clamps down on the dark squares in the center. It's pretty solid for black. So white decides to play a3. A3 is just a useful move just for a future like b4 ideas, expansion on the queen side. So white can't play b4 right away because of e4, which forces white's knight to a bad square, and black would follow up with knight f6. So the reason b4 is bad is not because of takes, because taking is actually fine for white, because white has the initiative after bishop a3. Something like knight c6, knight b5 wouldn't be that pleasant for black. And then if black wants to play bishop f8, then like d4 is good for white. But after e4, white is forced to play knight g1, and then black just has a healthy development here, and white is worse here. So white just decided to castle first, and black played a5. So this just stops b4 for good. And white continues with d3. Rook b1 is another option. And then a possible line would be knight e7, knight e1, bishop e6, knight d5. So knight e1 with the idea of knight c2, knight e3, and then potentially moving the knight to d5. So bishop e6 stops that, and white has to move the knight to d5 with this knight. If he followed with d3, then black can just take control of the d5 square by playing d5 himself. So anyways, white decides to just play this line d3, followed by rook b1, and he plays bishop g5. So bishop g5, it's kind of provoking black to play f6 or h6. So like it's not really any threat, but it's like a pin potentially on e7. So like a potential knight d5, but it's basically a move provoking, and white has to move the bishop back anyways. And he plays bishop e3 instead of the normal bishop d2. Bishop e3 is useful because when black plays bishop e6 and wants to play d5, the pawn on c5 will be hanging, so he has to play b6 first. So yeah, bishop e6, knight e1. And if the bishop was on d2, then black would be able to play d5. But he can't in this case. So first he plays b6. And now white stops d5 with knight d5. And here black takes with the bishop. So this is the first inaccuracy, I think. He can't take with the knight because of this fork, and white wins a piece. But he shouldn't take with the bishop either. So white's threat right now is knight takes e7, knight takes, followed by bishop takes a8. So he should move the rook to b8, with the idea of b5. And white can continue with b4 himself, because this knight actually helps defend b4. Or, sorry, that's not the point. b4 is playable because white can exchange on e7. So after black takes, white trades the knight first, here, forcing knight takes e7, otherwise white's going to take the knight. And then the recapture on b4 is possible, and after queen d7, the position is roughly equal, although white does have a bit more space on the queen side, just because of those two pawns. But I wouldn't say white has a huge advantage. Like, white does have control over a8, but black doesn't look to have any major weaknesses. So if white recaptures right away, this is a mistake, because now black can actually trade the knight with the bishop and win a pawn. So white has to play this intermediate check or trade, and then he will be a bit better here, like slightly. Okay, so black decided to trade off the knight right away and continues with knight d4. So I wrote a comment here. It doesn't look problematic now, but black has weak light square control. So in the future, there's not really going to be any pieces that can control the weak light squares. Black only has a queen to do it, but it's not the best piece to do it. And black's knight will only be able to like have good squares on dark squares, so that's not good. So white plays a4 here, which is a good move. It's establishing more light square control while also trying to kind of trap the knight or move the knight to an awkward square at f5, which is not where the knight wants to be. It wants to be like in the center or on the queen side. Whoops, like, yeah, in the center or on the queen side. So now he continues with b5. If black continued bishop queen d7, then bishop d2, e3, followed by e3 is good for white. Eventually black has to play b5, but this is probably not good for black already, because his knight is already not in a great spot. Okay, so decided to play b5 right away, and white traded. White could have traded his bishop for the knight, but he doesn't actually win the pawn on b5, because if he tries to defend it, then black will be able to win it back. So knight c2 is the best, and routing the knight to c4 is good too. So white also holds an edge here. I think just because of his light square control, and his queen has easy access here, rook can easily swing over, and yeah, there's just a lot of weak squares in black's camp, and white does not have a lot of weak dark squares. They're actually all covered. So yeah, but he didn't choose to trade the bishop, I think because he wanted to make use of his bishop pair. So this dark square bishop is actually Okay, so as I was saying, white chose to not trade the bishop here. I think because he felt that the bishop was stronger than black's knight for the future. He wanted to keep the bishop pair. So he continued in this variation. Knight c7. And it looks like white can't defend the d5 pawn, but after knight a3, black can't actually take it because he's gonna lose a piece after queen b3. So that's why he played king h8, queen b3, queen e7, preparing rook b8. And white plays a precise move here, bishop d2, the best move. It prepares like a future e4 if necessary to defend d5, while also protecting or covering the b4 square from the rook. So rook b8, queen c4, a4. A4 actually speeds up the process for white to open things up on the queen side, so it might not be the best move, but it's like black probably should have just improved his kingside position with h5, but I think he played a4 because he wanted to rush. He wanted to try to close things up with rook b3, but after b3 he can't do that anymore, so b3 is a good move. h5, b takes a4, rook takes, trades, and well, now the queen side or the a and b file are totally open, and white can start bring his pieces forward. So we can see here that black's knights are pretty clumsily placed, and it's mainly because of this d5 pawn. It's like a spear, prevents both knights from actually going or controlling the center well. If the knight wanted to go to f5 and maybe to d4, then white could just meet it with e3 easily. And the black bishop also doesn't really have a future. It's just kind of sitting there defending black's king. So e4. Okay, e4 directly stops knight f5 while also protecting the d5 pawn. King h7, knight c4. So with e4, white can actually play knight c4 if he can't start it with knight c4 immediately, because black can win a pawn. So bishop a5. Another reason why knight c4 is good, it supports bishop a5. Okay, 7. The threat was queen b7. The threat is queen b7 here, pinning the knight to the queen. So whoops. Okay, 7 and h4. Another good move. Preparing king h2 and bishop h3, which targets the c8 knight, and white can put pressure with queen b8. g5, king h2, bishop h6. So if g takes h4, white would not take back on h4, because that might allow some queen g4 things, which is unnecessary. So bishop h3, take, queen e8, and then queen b8. And this is losing for black, because if the knight moves, white wins the rook. If the knight doesn't move, then white's just going to take the knight, and it's losing. So that's why he continues bishop h6, bishop h3, g4, bishop g2, knight a6. Black's just kind of like skipping moves here. f3, knight c7 back, takes. Black is forced to take with h pawn. Otherwise, if queen takes, then I think something like queen c2 would be good, followed by bishop h3. Queen c2 just to protect the e2 square. Any queen checks would not be good, so yeah, this is winning. So h takes. Now bishop h3 is stopped, but now there's another target, which is the f pawn from the f file, which can be attacked from the f file, and this pawn is a weakness as well. So white can pile up on it with the queen and bishop. Rook f1, rook b7. So this is just like a hanging rook. I'm not sure why white didn't take it. I think maybe it's like a move error, like that's not what was actually played, but it's not really important. Like I think what happened in the game maybe wasn't this, but anyways, white I think in the game would have converted his advantage. So would have been converted his advantage. So queen d1, king g7, rook f2, king f7, and white just rerouted the bishop and won the g4, or is going to win the g4 pawn. And apparently in this position, black resigned, but it's already decisive. It's already winning for white. So basically, if white wins the g4 pawn, which he will, he can either choose to continue attacking the black king, and he also has a protected pass pawn. But yeah, I'm not sure what happened here with rook b7, but I think white played very well this game. Positionally, there wasn't like much tactics, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed the analysis.